Okay, here we are, live.
Hey everyone.
Hello,
Hi,
hello,
everyone.
welcome to the
Hi.
stream. I hope you can see us fine. We're a bit self-organized today. We don't have Carol with us, our community manager. So I hope you can see and hear us fine. And actually, if you could say that in the chat, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
So just to double check, that the audio works. Yeah, cool. We have Carl with us. Nice to see you as well. So welcome to Open Projects The Journey. This is the 5th episode, actually. So we're getting to a certain point now. And unfortunately, it's the last one of the year. After this, we're gonna keep working on the project, but we're not gonna live stream until 2021. So today with me, as usual, there's Amel and Shema.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
I am Ciro. We are the creator and advocacy team from the EMEA region for Unity. And just as a recap, for the ones who don't know what Open Projects is, actually, do you know what Open Projects is? Shema and Amel, do you know?
I think so. It's the 5th episode.
You know by now, right? I'm starting to get an idea, actually.
Yeah.
But for the ones who don't know, Open Projects is an initiative that we conceived earlier this year. Basically, our team used to go traveling to game events around the EMEA region, and then this year, obviously, we couldn't travel anymore. So we decided to come up with something new to connect with the developer community, and obviously, we have to do it online. So we decided to make a small game, a vertical slice of a game. And to make it together with the community and basically open source this game so that you as the community can contribute to it in all its aspects: graphics, sound, programming, design. And so we started this journey how long ago, girls?
Late September, I would say.
Yeah, it was like the end of September, and it took us a while to get where we are here, but it's going. It's really interesting. It's a very fascinating project, I will say. I've never actually worked on an open project, on an open source project myself, and at this scale, it's really complex. I just want to roll the video that we have for the concept art, just to show you again, what's the kind of game world that we're looking at. So this is the concept art that we have for the game. The game is called Chop Chop, and it's an action adventure, a very small action adventure. As I said before, it's a vertical slice, full of these cartoony characters. And you, as the protagonist, you are this chef, the pig chef that you saw at the beginning, traveling the world, and you get on this island. You arrive to this island where there's like a cooking festival, and you have to impress the local resident chef. So this is the pig chef that you see here on the number C. And that's pretty much the story. Like, you're trying to impress this local chef. You need to come up with like a crazy, amazing recipe that is going to impress him. And then you have some adventure on the road, let's say. So you go fetch ingredients. You go venture into the wild to fetch ingredients, right? Like, Shema is taking care of the game design a lot, right, Shema?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that with the community. I think it's very difficult to please everyone, but we try to take all in consideration.
I think the most difficult to please is me, right?
Yeah.
We're always
talking to you.
Actually, it's really interesting. With the girls, we always have like huge discussions. I wish we could have these discussions with everyone. It's obviously would be impossible. But we have huge discussions on the game design, on the game architecture, on the code. It's really fascinating. Maybe sometime next year we're gonna film some of those, right? And post them online. It's really good to get the team feeling in that sense.
Yeah.
So just to remind people where the project lives, right? I wanted to show you basically where to find this project. The project lives in 3 locations. The first one is the repository, which you can see here on screen. It's hosted on GitHub, so it's a Git repository. on the Unity creator advocacy organization. It's really easy to find. Like if you just Google Open Project One, you're gonna find it. And in these repositories where the main action happens, like that's where we develop the game in the open. So, you know, you can literally like go in here and start like browsing the files. And this is where you will contribute. Like when you contribute to the project, you will open what is called a pull request, and the pull request will go in here. And basically we will look at all the contributions and approve the ones that make sense, the ones that work. If you just wanna, you know, test the game, if you wanna just try out the game, you don't wanna contribute, just go here and download the code and explore the project. Small note, we added recently a wiki to the repo, which is full of like how to get started with it, how to explore the project, how to create a new playable scene. So this wiki is kind of like an instruction manual to the Unity project. Which version do you use to develop this? Who knows?
The 2019.4.14. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Why do we use 2019? You wanna tell?
It's because it's a long-term support version. So we wanted something that could last. And if you want to add something, Emil, sorry.
Yeah, so we try to use, of course, the version that is stable the most. So the LTS version, since it's like long-term support, is the one that we use, and this should avoid us to have some weird bugs or whatever that would come up if we are doing something more, in a newer version. Yeah.
Yes, that's the idea, right? So we want to stay on a stable version. Maybe later we will migrate to 2020, but this is not for like the development of this game. Maybe once we finish, just so we make an updated version. But actually, I just wanted to point out one thing about this project. We're also releasing, apart from these live streams like the one you're watching now, we're also releasing some videos that we call devlogs. And we released one 2 weeks ago, which was about the toon shading. And then we're going to release one next week, I think, about the scriptable object architecture that we have created. And together with these demos, with these videos, we release actually small demos. So for example, if you go here to the repo and you go to this branch, devlogs 1, you will find the demo associated with the first video. So we kind of like package together smaller demos and we attach them to the video. And the second one is already up, actually, even if the video is not published yet. So just go in here and explore these special branches, I would say. These branches here are migrated to 2020. So if you're looking for an updated version of the project, just go to here and download that. But as I said, the main development is going on 2019.4 for now.
Yeah.
What do we have today to show? Shem and Amel, do you have stuff for the community, some updates?
Do you want to spoil them?
No, not really. But maybe I want to start. Or actually, we should show the forums or the codex. It's fine.
I think we should show them the progress so far, where we are at. So what happened previously in other videos.
That's a good point. Because we are on the 5th episode, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that we've done so far. So we prepared a small video for you to watch. It's like 2.5 minutes. And that's going to give you an idea of what we covered so far. And if you want to go on the recordings of the previous episodes, you know where to find stuff. So without further ado, in previous episodes... So in the first episode, we started with the toon shading, as we mentioned before. This was the moment when we were looking for basically defining the look of the game. And in these episodes, we went over how we created the toon shading in Shader Graph.
And then in episode 2, we have started by introducing scriptable object events, which is a powerful way that we decided to use instead of using singletons. And with this system, we were able to raise events without and with parameters.
Yeah, and then we talked about the UI wireframing and how our game will feel and look like for the players without going in depth into the design or anything that is related to that to the art.
And finally, in episode 2, I covered the state machine. The state machine powers all of our characters. It's a community contribution, so I really recommend to check it out. We also have a page on the wiki for it. In episode 3...
Oh yeah, in episode 3 we talked about the game design and progression, and in the top level view of how our game will be played. So we have missions, we have tasks, and if you need more information, you can go back and look into that episode.
And we have also introduced the dialogue and cutscene systems to manage how we request to start a cutscene or a dialogue, passing by the timeline that speaks with the system to request the lines.
Yes, and we covered like how to create a custom timeline track as well.
Yeah, and while doing that, we tried also to integrate the game localization, and now whatever system you are doing, try to introduce the game localization and localized strings instead of simple strings.
We also took a look at the input system, so the new Unity input system, and how to integrate it with like the state machine that we have in the game, and how to use action maps. Then in episode 4, we had a guest, Andy, and we covered. I covered the audio system, which is a very complex system that's gonna allow us to play like SFX and music in a very comprehensive way. And then Andy covered some special shaders, one to tint the characters. He did some very crazy experiments like this one.
Yeah, exactly.
And one to tint the environment. And that's it. That's what we did until now. So as you can see, we covered a lot of stuff in previous episodes. Again, you can find them on the Unity YouTube channel. Just go there and check. Every video has chapters, so you can jump to like individual topics.
Yeah, and because we had a lot of systems that we introduced, we need to know how the system will look like. Even though we don't have the art, even though we don't have the correct UI, we needed to see how it looks like. Like, for example, for the dialogue system and the localization. And that's why today I'm going to talk about the UI overview and how we will be integrating the UI into the scene, and how we'll be collaborating with everyone to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Should I send your video?
Yeah, let's. So this is a project that we have right now currently, and soon enough you will see that we have a new scene that is called gameplay. And in this new scene, actually, we will have every manager every manager and the UI that you will see during the gameplay that we will have. So let's start let's start first. We will have the menu scene that will have the UI. Then we will have the gameplay that will have also a UI that is concentrated only on the gameplay. So as you can see here, we will have, for example, the inventory manager, the dialogue manager, the interaction, or anything that needs to be managed in the systems. And we will have the UI manager that will control the UI, and then we will have our UI. And as you can see in the canvas, every part of the UI is in its own prefab. So for example, here we have the dialogue panel that is in its own prefab, the game screen that is in its own prefab, and the inventory screen that is in its own prefab. And that's because we wanted our UI to be separate in different parts that can be worked on by the community without touching the other parts. So for example, if we need to change anything in the inventory screen, we just go to the prefab, we change our informations there, and then we commit only the information that are in the inventory screen. The thing is, and as we talked about in previous episodes, we have the event systems with the scriptable objects. And those events will be called from these different parts so that we don't have a direct link from each part to the UI managers. For example, in here in the UI manager, you can see that we have an open UI dialog event, an open inventory, close inventory, etc. And those events will be called from the different parts, or from another scene, or from the pig manager, or anywhere in the scene, and they will be listened to in the UI manager, and the UI manager will take care of the parts that need to be shown in the screen, and which information they need to show. So to this extent, we need that in the gameplay, the UI manager is the only script that will have references to these top level prefabs of the UI. So as you can see, if we go and open an example scene, let's write it in English. Oh, sorry. So let's open the interaction example, for example, and we will add to this scene the gameplay scene. Now we have those two scenes loaded, and if we click on play, and wow, okay, this is nice. If we move to one of the objects, if it wants to go, if we move to one of the objects and we click on pickup, we will see that this will pick up something, an item, and this item will actually be added in the inventory. Okay, 1 second, just I need to replay this again.
You love controlling the camera with the mouse, huh?
Of course.
Shema, we need to get you we need to get you a controller. Actually,
yes,
to both
yes.
of you.
Of course. So as I said, once we pick up one of the items, it will send an event to the UI manager, and then the UI manager will send an event to the inventory, and will add that to the inventory. So we have this item again. And I spoiled myself a bit because I talked about the inventory, but this was only to show you. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
And that was only to show you that the interaction here will happen in this scene, the interaction example. We will interact with one of the items, and this item actually will send an event. This interaction will send an event to the inventory manager that will say, well, this has been picked up. Please give me a new item. And I will explain that better in just a few minutes. Do you want me to go through to go to the inventory system directly, or do we have any questions about the UI system for now?
Questions. I'm actually fielding some questions directly in the chat.
Yeah.
So I don't see many questions about. Somebody's asking actually, how is the object detection done by Raycast, and is that already in the GitHub repo? Would love to check it out. Your sound system and event system is just lovely.
Nice.
I made the sound system, so thank you. I'm not joking,
for the pickup, we will talk that we are using the trigger, so we will mention this in details later in that section. So stay here to see it.
Yeah. We'll talk about the pickup in just a few after talking about the inventory. For now, I just wanted to show how the UI will be integrated and how we will collaborate with everyone by using the prefabs and a separate scene, so that everything will be separate.
So
yeah, and now I'm spoiling everyone again with the inventory.
Oops, sorry.
That's awesome. No worries. So yeah, I'm going now to talk about the inventory. As you saw in the scene, the UI has been integrated, and it's in the interaction branch. I think right now you can have a look at it. But to arrive to that part, to that UI part, we had a long journey. Actually, 5 episodes.
Let's talk about that. What took us here? Shema, give us some details.
We started with the UI wireframing. Actually, we started with the community that wanted to have an inventory in the game, And then we talked about it in the forums. And then to see it better, I thought that maybe UI framing a diagram would show what we needed in the inventory. And by doing that, each time we discovered a new thing that we didn't take into consideration. So for example, the controller, the mouse, how we will select multiple items, what is the best solution that will not take us a lot of time to implement, what is the best thing to have that and this. And yeah, we had a lot of discussions with the team and with the community about that. So if you want, Ciro, to share my screen with me, or with everyone?
Sure.
Yeah. So as you can see, actually, this board is available for everyone. So if you want to see it, I think we have the link somewhere in the forums, and maybe we will share it with everyone here. So if I click on presenter mode, yeah. This is actually the last iteration of the inventory, but it will not be the last one overall. It's just the last one for now. What we decided is that we will have the inventory with different tabs, the customization item, the cooking items, and the recipe, because we know that the inventory will have items that the character can wear, will have items that the character can use to cook, and we will also have a recipe book, but we thought that maybe having the recipe in the inventory would be easier, and we will see that in a bit. So the customization item, the cooking item, and the recipes are tabs that contain items. So we have the item here. Each item has a number of the amount that we have of that item in our inventory. Then once we click on one of the items, we will see a preview about it and the information about that item. Depending on what item we are selecting, we will have an action button. The different actions that are available are either equip, if it's a customization item, use, if it's an ingredient, eat, if it's a dish that we prepared, cook, if it's a recipe, and do nothing if it's a utensil, because we can't do anything with the utensil. Maybe we can give them to one of the NPCs, but we will not do that from the inventory. So utensils do nothing for now. And by saying that, as I said, if we go to the recipe tab, we will see recipes and they will help us cook. So to help us do that and to not have to select multiple items, to go from recipe, seeing what items we need, and then going back to the cooking items, selecting the items and then cooking, we decided that each recipe, once inspected, will have the ingredients that are needed. This is the list of ingredients that are needed. If we have all the ingredients, we will have them checked. And once we have everything checked and we are near a pot, we can cook. The button cook will appear. And that's why we decided that the recipe might be better in the inventory because, yeah, it's an item. And it will help us cook easier without having to go back and forth between recipes, cooking items, or anything else like that. So yeah, this is how...
Sorry to interrupt, Shema, I was muted as well. I wanted to say to the chat, you should really see the moments, because me, Shema, and Amel, we all work in Copenhagen, so we see each other in real life. And you should see the moments when Shema's been working on the inventory for like 5 days straight, and I come in and I'm like, Shema, didn't we say that we're gonna move this button here and there? And she looks at me and goes like, I'm gonna kill you now. You should see the faces. Yeah, we should really like film ourselves when
yeah, we should film ourselves working, especially when it's before a stream, because that's when we take our most important decisions. And sometimes the decision comes from nowhere, and sometimes while we're integrating, we figure out that we have like something that is not working. So for example, for the multiple selection, the problem was the controller, because with the mouse, it was very easy to just go click, click, click. But then we thought, what would we do with the controller? And let's say that I've developed like a special menu. So for example, when you click on something, it shows a menu with use, discard and select or something like that. So, and everything was just trashed away because we don't need it anymore. We have the recipes in the inventory now.
Yeah, we're basically doing like iterative design, I guess, development.
Yeah.
It's just that our, how can I say, our rhythm is a bit different than the one from, from normal game development, because we have this influx of changes from the community, which we go through every now and then. Then we have the live streams, then we have the moments of development where we can actually focus. So it kind of like goes up and down, and then sometimes there's like it's going up and the live stream is also coming up, and you should see like it's
the
really
open
fun.
project roller coaster too.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster of emotions.
Exactly. So if you need any more information about this part of the design, you can find them in Miro. The dashboard, the link for the dashboard is on, I think it's on UI wireframing thread in the forums.
I'll share it right now in the chat as well.
Thank you, Chiro. So it has also multiple post-it notes that contain all the information that I just talked about. It's just to avoid having to go back and forth between the diagram and the forums. So saying that, this is how it should look like, but how it is exactly, what is the inventory system? The inventory system has been worked on by the community for a long time. And we had a lot of contribution, and they created the base of the system, and it was so good. But let me explain it to you better with this diagram. And I will show you later the code. I will show you later how it looks like in on the editor. But for now, let's see how the data hierarchy will look like. So as always, we created the inventory as a scriptable object. It contains a list of item stacks, and the item stack is actually also a scriptable object. It contains the item and the amount. Here also the item is a scriptable object that will be that will have the informations needed for that item, which are the name. It's a localized string, so that it allows us when we are working on in the UI to not have a string that will be modified later on by a localized string. We will have a localized string from the start. So the item contains the name, the preview image, the description, an item type, which we'll talk about later, the prefab preview. For now, the prefab preview in all our items is just empty because we don't have any preview, and we don't know yet if we are going to have that prefab preview. If we have an image, why have a prefab for it? We also have an ingredient list and the resulting dish. But those two, the ingredient list and the resulting dish, are only used when the item is a recipe. So for now, it's still in the item, but these will only be used if the item that we have is a recipe. Because in the recipe, we need to know how many ingredients we need, what are the ingredients that we need, and what is the resulting dish that we have after cooking this recipe. The item type now. The item type will also be a scriptable object that will contain the type, which is an enum. So the type of the item can be a dish, a utensil, I think customization, recipe, and ingredient. Those are the types that we have. And each type has its own name. So for example, if we need to show it, we need to have its name. The type color here, we thought that in the UI, we will show each item with its own color in the background, and we will see it later in the integration. So we need the type color for each type that we have. The action type, so for example, let's say, the action types are enums. So the action type is what the button action that we have here in the inventory will do. So if we are, for example, selecting a recipe, we will cook it. If we are selecting an ingredient, we will use it or eat it. If we are selecting a dish, we will eat it as well.
Shema, don't forget to zoom in because some people might be watching this from the phone.
Of course, yeah. Oops, too much.
That's good. No, it was good.
So the action type will be an enum, as I said, and each action type will have a name. Here, for example, the action type will tell us what we will do with the item, but the action name can be different from that. So for example, when I said use and eat, I meant the same thing in the action type, but in the name, it will show differently. So if we are going to use an ingredient, we will consume it. And if we are going to use a dish, we will consume it. But the name that will be shown in the button can be different. It can be use and eat or drink or whatever thing we want to do in the action name. Now, because we have different tabs in the UI, we want each item to be in the correct tab, shown in the correct tab. So we need to know for the item type, which tab it needs to go under. For the tabs, we have the tab name that will be shown in the UI and the tab type that we will use to sort every item. So yeah, this is how it will look like. Just 1 second, because when I scroll, it doesn't want to scroll. Okay, so this is what we will have in the data the data architecture for the inventory, and maybe it will not be the same in 2 or 3 weeks, but for now this is what we have.
Yeah, what we always say is that obviously the videos are recorded, right, and we cannot change them. So whatever you see in the videos, just double check. And the ultimate source of truth, of course, is the project, of course.
Yeah.
Whatever was written last in the forums, and the wiki that is on the project. That one we will update it all the time.
Yeah.
And the diagrams, we will put updated images of the diagram. So just refer to that. But I think the discussion that we have here is always useful for understanding the reasoning behind.
Yeah, and it's also very useful for the community to know where we are at what point and what we are thinking about, so that they can discuss with us where they see it going.
Yeah. And this is how it usually happens actually in real game development, right? Like you start doing something and then you adjust it and then you think it's better to do it this way. So all these changes constantly are really part of this like adventure that we wanted to expose to people and like have them contribute with us. Sometimes like we work on systems and then someone opens the PR and you're like, oh, this is much better. Let's merge this PR and work on that. So yeah, as Chiro said, always refer to the wiki, and the latest version should be on the GitHub as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm reading the chat and somebody just said that Dots is written by Jesus, and I don't know what to think of that. But that was funny.
Yeah, I saw questions about Dots in the chat, and I'm like, interesting.
Shall we clarify? Yes. Are we using Dots on this project? Because everybody's asking Dots. Are we using Dots in this project?
I don't.
Who decides? So. That's the.
No. I said, should we clarify, not decide? Of course, we already decided.
Oh yeah.
What do you say? We have 3 votes. I say no.
I think that for now we are in our 5th episode. It's like
it's a bit late.
into the project to think about Dots for now. Just to answer the question in a very straight way. No, we're not going to use Dots. Dots is in a state that is not yet ready to make a full game with it, and also in this this initiative is special. Like, we're collaborating with people. We have like multiple skill levels, and Dots is a bit like complicated to use right now. So we wanted to open the barriers as much as possible. Also, for the type of game, we don't really need it. It's not a game at scale. Actually, many decisions that we took on this project, including the art style, are to lower the barrier as much as possible.
So the art style being cartoony is also for that. Actually, we haven't shown the game yet. Should I show the game? Just quickly.
Yeah.
Does the chat want to see the game? Let's break all the plans that we made. No?
Okay, let's do that.
Why not?
Let's take a break from inventory and then.
You were not finished though, right?
No, I was.
Okay. No, I'll leave it back to you, Shema.
Okay, let's finish the inventory and then we can show the game. Okay,
Yes.
Fine.
Let's do this.
Nice. Great, because now we talked about how the inventory would look like when we are talking about the data architecture, but we will show how we integrated it in the scene. And to do that, we have another diagram. So yeah, we are very spoiled with diagrams today. So I think I can I? No. I can't zoom in this mode. So I will exit this mode and I will be zooming here. So we will start with the inventory manager. So the inventory manager is what will update the current inventory that we have. It will update the data there. And to do that, it will listen to different events that we have scattered in the scene and that are called from different parts. So we have the So we have the add item event, we have the cook recipe event, we have the equip item, we have the use item, and we have the remove item event. And each event from this will do something to the data. So for example, adding an item will add the item to the inventory. Cooking the recipe will remove the items that we have in this recipe, and then we'll create a new dish that will be added to the recipe. And that's why we need a function for that alone. Equipping an item, for now, it's not called from anywhere, I think, but it will need to be to have a function in the inventory manager. Using the item will remove it from the inventory manager, and then removing an item, for now, it's not called anywhere in the scene because we don't have a use for it, but maybe it will come later. So for example, if we interact with a character and we give them an item, we need to remove it from the inventory manager. So
this is one of those decisions where me, Shema, and Amel fight for an entire day, like, can we remove items? Do we need to remove items? Because I'm trying to be the voice of sanity here, and I'm always trying to simplify. Not that they are insane, but the thing is, when you have many voices on the project, you need to have like a final word, and because everybody will want to add something, right? But we need to keep the scope small.
That's what Chiro says, and I always say, but what if someday we need to do something that needs to remove the item? Why don't we take that in consideration from now? And he's like, it's a vertical slice.
I guess it's always a balance between keeping yourself open for future possibilities and not just like make the scope of the game skyrocket from now if we don't need it. So
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, these events will be listened to in the inventory manager, and that will help us just have the inventory manager as a prefab in a different scene that is linked to nothing except maybe the current inventory, and even the current inventory is a scriptable object. So, and that's why we are using the scriptable object event for now. So these events will be called from different parts, as I said, and one of them is the UI inventory manager. Here, the UI inventory manager will use the data present in the current inventory. It will control the UI in general, but it will also listen to some events and raise some other events. So for example, if someone clicks on a button action, we will raise the event that is action button event. And the inventory manager will say, oh, okay, there is a button for an action that's been clicked somewhere. And currently I am selecting this item, so it must be for this item, and it knows what to do. So if the item is a recipe, it will raise the event cook recipe event. If the event is for equip, or if the event is for use, it knows where to go to raise this event and that the inventory currently is listening to. So the inventory manager is controlled by the UI manager. The UI manager is the only object in the scene that has reference to the UI manager. It will open and close the inventory. It will also listen to different events that are present in the scene to open the inventory, to close the inventory, to start the cooking inventory. Because when you enter, when you go near a pot and you want to interact with that pot, I'm spoiling for ML later. So when you want to interact with that bot, you start the cooking inventory, and that will open the inventory on the recipe tab. So you will also end the interaction event, and this will be listened to from the UI manager. So all those events like start the cooking inventory, end the interaction, and add an item will be raised by the interaction manager, and we will see that later on. So yeah, this is how our inventory system is working currently, and let's try it again in our scene. So if we go to Unity and then we click on play, because currently we have the gameplay scene, and then we have the interaction example. We have our big chef. We go near an apple. As you can see, this is an icon of an apple.
Fantastic icon.
Yes, I know.
You can all appreciate Shema's 3D skills, math skills.
Exactly. So if we pick up the apple here, and then we open the inventory, we will see that the number of apples has been increased. And if we go back to the scene and then we pick up a banana, for example, we will see that a banana has been added to the cooking items. And if we click on one of the items, we will see that we will inspect the informations about that. So we have the preview here, we have the title, we have the description, and we can, for example, use this. So yeah, when we use it, it will disappear from the UI, and also it will disappear from the current inventory that we have. Let's just pick up another banana. Oh, I think I will not have enough items to cook the dish that I have.
What?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
the game is cancelled.
Because I already cooked the banana. So if we go to the recipe, we have a recipe for a smoothie. And for that recipe, we need 2 apples, 2 bananas, and 1 mixer. We have the mixer, we have everything, but we have only 1 banana. So let's just go back to the game again. This is a hack that I know about this game. So if we go back and then we pick up another banana, we will have enough items to cook. So if we go back to the recipe, we can cook 1 smoothie, and it will be added to the cooking items. All the other ingredients that we used have been removed, except the mixer, because we can't get rid of the mixer. Actually, it's a utensil, so we always have it. So yeah, we have a smoothie. Do you want to eat it? Yay! Yeah. So this is how the inventory system is working, basically. I will share with everyone more information in the forums and maybe the diagram, so that you see it better. And yeah, as you can see, it's been updated and everything is working fine.
Alex Sudati says, you need to farm for ingredients. Speed run it, Shema, go. Actually, that would be funny if we had some kind of speed running technique, I guess, in the final game, right?
And
We
also
should have.
show one last thing, because I did it like I spent time doing that. So because we integrated that with the localization system, if we change that to French, we will see that everything's been translated directly without having to do anything in the scene.
Ah, nice. Let me read
Yeah.
something. Let me try. Ceci est une recette pour préparer un smoothie banane et pomme. Was it good?
Exactement. Oui.
Honestly, Chiro,
C'est
bravo.
bon.
C'est bon, yeah.
So we actually we should say this. We start with the French and English, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I
Somebody was
think
trying to add German this week through a PR, and I'm gonna reject it because Shema, you say why? You're gonna be the bad person. But
because I don't know German. I don't know.
no, I mean, why are we not implementing all languages yet, right?
I think we will create a Drive document for that, so that we will take the information from that Drive and not having everyone participating into the localization and committing a lot of informations. I think that's what we decided here.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I was sending an emoji in the chat. Very busy moment. Somebody actually gave a very good suggestion. They said the project needs a dev console. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we need Peter Andreasen on this project. I'm making a reference to the FPS sample dev console that they have on the FPS sample game.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is it the time of the year where we can see the pickup system? Or not yet?
Up to
Actually,
you.
didn't we say we are going to see the project?
You want to see the project first?
Do you want to see it now or later? As you prefer, Chiro. I don't mind.
I
if you
want to
it.
show a little bit of the project just
Yeah.
because I have a nice scene.
Sure.
So let me
Because
do
my
this.
icon for an apple and the banana was very haunting.
No, I'll give you some good graphics. So for the ones who are new to this project and want to understand what we're talking about, this is the project. Like, this is actually a test scene. We call it testing ground. Actually, Shema is working out of another test scene, which is called Testing Ground Small, I think.
I'm working on interaction example, I think.
No, but I mean, you're using the simplified version, while this one
exactly.
this one is meant to be more or less like a graphic test to check out like how the game looks. So you can see like we have a little forest. It's completely baked GI. Then we have a few objects with colliders, of course. So this is the testing ground where we like test the game controller, the character controller, sorry, the camera, and the animations as well. So you can see how cute is the pig. He has the idol. He has like a phoenix chick in the back. So it's kind of like a little adventurer that has like some items. Right now he's not using them yet. Then he can speak. I think if I press Y, yes.
Oh,
There's a speaking
nice.
animation. And then there's a pickup animation that Shema showed you before. Then this is the cooking pot, which in this scene is not interactive, so I'm not gonna be able to interact. I can jump on it.
I will make it interactive in a few minutes.
Yes. And then in the future we're gonna be able to like smash these pots using the walking cane that the pig also has. But anyway, this is the kind of like the action, I would say. Obviously it's not the whole game. We're gonna have like NPCs, we're gonna have this cooking interaction, we're gonna have like a fighting. I'm gonna show you some more graphics later. But this is just to give you an idea of the style of game. Actually, we have a super cool feature. Look at this. To show the character like behind geometry.
Oh, yeah.
So if the character is obstructed by a geometry, you can see it through
Nice.
obstacles, and you don't lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the rendering of this game is super interesting. I'm just gonna give you an example. If you're using URP, is it this one? Yeah. You can see how many render features we're using here. We have a lot of passes for water, for the outline effect that we have, the abstraction that I was mentioning before. So there's a lot of stuff. Anyway, this was just to give you a small preview of the game for the ones who are completely new to it, just to figure out what we're talking about. And I'm done. Who wants to go next?
Thanks a lot, I will go next, I think, to show you how this cooking pot will be interactable. So let's maybe start with that, and I will share my screen and show you the small demo scene, I would say, with the interaction. So if I'm gonna press play now, we see the character, and as we saw with Shema, so we can press E to pick up, and you can see that we have this pickup animation that is playing at the same time. We also have Bard here. We can talk with him, but we are not doing this yet because we didn't link it yet to the cutscene manager. And now you can cook. So as you can see, we can press E to cook, and this shows the interface that Shema showed us earlier. So we can see the different recipes and we can cook. So yeah, this is the pickup quickly that you somehow already saw. And I'm going to show how this
sorry
works.
About that.
No. And so this one is like the gameplay scene that Shema mentioned that contains the UI that for now we are just loading this like by drag and drop manually, but we will work on this later to somehow like rethink the whole architecture of the scenes in the project and make it fit to this ability to have this gameplay always loaded in all the scenes that are not the main menu, etc. So I wanted to show a diagram for this one. Before showing you how it works in details, maybe in the prefab and the code. So I have this system that is called word pickup system. And here we can see that we have not just the pickups or interaction system. And you can see that I divided here things by steps. So we have step 1, which is on trigger enter. The second step is when we press the interaction button. And then we have on interaction end as the third step. And I will explain why we need these different steps. So first thing, we do have this Pig Chef prefab that we already have. And we added as a child another prefab called interaction, which will be responsible for everything that we need to do with the interaction system. And this is, again, really useful to put things in prefabs. So if I have any change today that I want to make on interaction, I don't need to commit the whole Pig Chef prefab or the whole scene. I only need to make my changes on interaction and then push them to the Git repository without having any conflicts. So this interaction game object has a trigger collider. It also has a rigid body because, as you know, at least one of the two game objects needs to have a rigid body to detect collisions. And then we have the interaction manager monobehavior script. And this script, in the first step, is using this onTriggerAnthem method. And here we check what's the tag of the game object we are interacting with. And depending on that interaction type, we can decide if we want to cook or we want to talk or we want to pick up. So here, for instance, you can see this note where I say we have an interaction type, which is an enum. And this one can be set to pick up, cook, talk, or known. And if another day we want to add another type of interaction, we just need to add it to the list of the enum. And then this enum, we are using it as a variable twice. So we have the potential interaction, which happens in the first place when we enter the trigger. And then we have the current interaction when we actually press the button, which happens in the step 2. So for step 1, depending on the tag, we want to raise an event to say, hey, we want to show this interact UI. So that UI that we can say that says press E to pick up or press E to cook. This is raised using this event called toggle interact UI, which we specify the interact type as parameter. And we have the UI manager that is listening to that. And the UI manager is basically taking care to show that in the screen. And then we have the current interaction that happens here in the second step. So once we know that we entered that trigger and we showed that UI, we want to press a button to, like, as an additional condition, if you want, to actually make the action happen. So depending on the switch, again, we decide. So here, if it's a cook event, we're going to start cooking event here, which is the UI manager listening to it to actually show us that inventory that we saw. Or we can talk using a raise method. For now, we decided to pass the actor as parameter, but this also could be discussed later depending on how we are going to do it from the dialog manager side. And then we do have a raise event with an item when we want to add the inventory, to add the item to the inventory. And this is the inventory manager, which is listening to this event. And we do something else actually in the pickup. If you notice that we have this animation of the character collecting the game object. And this is a way, like the way we are doing it is talking to the state machine to ask the state machine to play that animation and also play the sound that comes with the pickup animation. And then in the last step, we have the toggle interact UI. So if you notice, and I'm going to show it later again in the demo another time. So when we press E, for instance, to talk to a character, or press E to cook, after we leave the inventory UI, we still want the player to be able to actually interact again with the cooking pot or talk again to the character. So basically, there is only one scenario where we don't need to show that UI again, is when we pick up the game object, because the game object is destroyed and we don't need to say press E to pick up again. But we can cook again or talk again. So that's why we decided to have this on interaction ended to tell us that, okay, now the interaction ended, and using multiple managers, that could be the UI manager or dialog manager. So for instance, dialog manager could say, okay, I ended this conversation with this NPC, and now this interaction ended. And this way we call again the toggle interact UI, the same one that we called at first when we trigger enter the for the interaction. And the same, we use a boolean to say true because we want to show that UI and display it, and then the interaction type. So this is in 3 steps, I would say, the scenario. And as you can see, we also read the input from the input reader. And this is basically useful, especially on step 2, because it's at this step that we are listening to the interaction button press to make sure that the user actually pressed that button. So now once we have this diagram, if I go back to my scene and I go to the list of the prefabs, let me double click on the pig chef, we can see that we have this prefab called interaction that I talked about. So as you can see, this is the box collider that we are using to interact with the game objects. So it's in front of the pig to detect the different interactions that we have, and its trigger. And then we have this script that I mentioned, which is the interaction manager. So we are reading the input, we are listening to the interaction when it ends, but we are also broadcasting those events with or without parameters, depending on the need, on those different event channels. And if I just quickly double click to show it.
So that's this is all leaning on our event system, right, Amel?
Yeah.
Scriptologic-based event system.
Totally. So here we can see an example of the void event channel that we already had, but we added some of them that are specific to the interaction. For instance, the item event or the dialogue event, etc. So we will keep like adding different type of events depending on the need of the parameters that we need to pass.
Do you wanna quickly show the void one, just to give people an idea of the code?
So yeah, here you can see that we have this event, and we are raising the event. So first we check if it's not empty, and then we invoke it. And as we said, those scriptable objects are like anchors. So there is some scripts that will be raising those, and other monobehavior script will be listening to them. So this is like an intermediate, I would say, between those two monobehaviors. And if you notice something like with Shema, for instance, even though interaction and inventory are really, really connected to each other, we really were able to work even in different branches. Like at first, and I saw someone actually asking in the chat, he said, what's the difference between inventory branch and interaction branch? It's because at first we started to work on these two systems independently. Now we merged everything in interaction, and we will eventually merge this into main and remove the 2 branches. But what I wanted to say is through this powerful event system, because we don't have those old way of doing things like hard referencing the game objects and drag and drop thing, now because we have events to communicate, it became really, really easy for us to, like continue working on the project without necessarily knowing what is happening in the inventory, or without her knowing what is happening exactly in the interaction side. And this is, I think, modular, and it's really easy, make it easy for contribution especially. So yeah, here we have all those different methods that we call with the listeners. We have the one for the interaction button that I mentioned. Again, this code is all on the Git repository, so feel free to go there if you need to see this more in details. And now if I go back to here, as I said, we have the PigChef that has the interaction on it. And I wanted to show something else, which is the way we speak with the state machine. So here, if you go to Shop, you can see that we have state machine, transition table editor. And now we can see that we have a new state, which is called the pickup. And if I go to idle and I click on it, I can see that now I can go from idle. The way we have it before, we can go to walking, sliding, jump, etc. But we also added pickup. So now we are able to go from idle to pickup state. And you can see that this is the condition, which is picking up. And if I quickly open this script just to see it, you can see that we are speaking with the interaction manager that we have created. And in there, we are just taking the interaction type and checking if it's a pickup to be able to do that. So this is like the same way that other not events, but other examples of states are working. So we just added a new one, and it's pretty simple, I would say. For me, it was simple, I would say, to get started with the state machine.
Just as a small note, because
Yeah.
somebody before was mentioning UI Toolkit. So the small window that you're seeing right now that Amel opened,
Yeah.
the one that says transition tables, that's done with UI Toolkit. So we're not using UI Toolkit for the in-game UI in the game, but we're using it for small tools. Actually, not even us. That's a community contribution. So if you're curious about UI Toolkit, you can also find some of it in there.
Totally, yeah. And so, as I said, here we are going from idle to pickup, but we want also to be able to go back from pickup to idle. And the condition here is the timer. If you notice, we have used this similar condition, for instance, for the jump, and then we specify the duration of the jump. This is used to get this timer value. So here we are using it also for the pickup. And actually, Shiro, I think we mentioned this, and maybe someone would be interested in the community to do it, is maybe to be able to assign automatically the duration of the animation without having to type it manually every time on the
definitely.
timer. So that could be really a good addition if anyone would be interested to do it. So here, as I said, these are the different conditions. So if we click here, we can see the different actions. And when we are in the pickup state, we want to perform two actions. The first one is we want to play the pickup sound. And here you can find the different, so the audio cue event channel, and the audio configuration. It's same as what we used for the jump, basically. And then we have the pickup trigger. And if we go here, you can see that we have the name of the trigger, which is pickup, and it's of type trigger. Now, if we want to visualize this a little bit better, if we go to the animator window, you can see the animator controller that we showed already with Shiro in previous episodes. But just to mention that we added the collect animation, and this is using the pickup trigger. So, for instance, you can see from idle, the conditions are here, the pickup trigger. So this is what we are also doing from this side in here.
And thanks so much to the person who created this state machine, because it's a really cool solution.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So yeah, this is how we are doing it from the state machine, I would say, perspective. And that's it, I would say, for the pickup, more or less. Yeah.
That's it? Done?
Yes, I would say. Do you have any questions from the chat, Shiro or Shem?
Do I have any question?
Do you have any questions, Shiro?
Does the chat have any question? Not really.
Yeah. But we can just also remind people who just joined the stream that today we are in episode 5 of the Unity Open project, which is a collaborative initiative where us, Unity, and you, the community, come together to create a small open source game project. And today, so far in this episode, we have shown the inventory system with the UI system with Shema. I have also now just showed the word interaction system. And now I guess it's time maybe to reveal the results from a topic that I would say surprise. Yeah, from last time. I think we opened the vote for the topic.
Yeah.
And I would say people are curious to know.
Yeah, so basically last time 2 weeks ago, during the stream, we opened the form to say, what do you want to hear about regarding 2 topics? We gave a choice of 2 topics, and the topics were collaboration and Git, and the other one was on prefabs. And actually, we got something like 360 votes or something, and the 2 topics were like head to head by 1 vote.
Yeah.
So we will probably cover both. And for this one, yeah, it was so funny. It was like 1 vote, and I didn't even cheat. I didn't have to. No, seriously. Yeah, it was something like 180 and 181. So we're gonna cover both because it's 50-50, so it doesn't make sense to just like leave one behind. But for this episode, we decided to talk about prefabs, which is my favorite subject, and I actually have a little pin, as you can see, nested prefab pin. Actually, let me show you.
It's a
prefab fashion.
and a nest.
Sorry, it's a prefab on a nest.
Prefab
Yeah.
and a nest.
Yeah. Apply changes now, Ciro.
What nerd joke. So I'm gonna talk about prefabs. So let me set up. Let me organize. Actually, who has used nested prefabs already? But most importantly, who has used variants in the chat? And do you know what to use variants for? That's actually what I'm curious about, because I want to show you a few ways to use variants that are maybe you don't know about. Even you too, you'll see. I'll surprise you too.
Okay. I'm looking
to
at the chat.
Yeah, me too.
People are saying they used it, that it's very useful.
I've used it, but I don't know if I was the right way. Variants. Okay, sure. So, not yet. How do you get an object not to deform when rotating? Well, for that's another subject, but that's you shouldn't scale non-uniformly the parent. So when an object is parented to another one, the parent always needs to have a uniform scale. So 111, 222, 05, 05, 05. If you scale non-uniformly, then it will deform.
Yeah.
Bread speed 1. That's in answering your question. But let's go back to the prefabs. So I want to show you a few interesting things about variants, especially because obviously everyone uses nesting, right? Nesting is easy. Like you make a prefab, you put it inside another one, boom, nested. But I want to show you a few uses for variants. So variants are a very interesting tool that came with the nested prefabs in 2018.4. Here I'm in the art scene. I'm going to show you the art later, some incredible art contributions from the community as well. But I want to focus on this one because one of the users, Trevize, he made this character, and the character has like some variations. So it can be like kind of like fire. Then we can have like another one which is like green, one that is brown, and stuff like that. So the idea is, somebody's saying, I'm sure you will create an empty game object and make out of these variants. Or maybe not, yes. Maybe not. So the point is, I want to show you the first usage for variants. The first usage is just adding some little tweak, right? And the idea is, for instance, this is a prefab. It's actually a variant as well, but I'll get to that later. And I want to create one that is green. So I want to change the material on this one. And as you can see, I call this one Slime Critter, just broke the name, Slime Critter Base. And to make a variant, I will just like duplicate it. So I duplicate the object, I move it to the side, and maybe I'll call it green, for instance. Then I change the material. So I select the material and I choose this one. Now I have my variation, right? It's not a variant yet. This is just the previous prefab that has been modified. And in fact, you can see, I hope the screen will zoom. You can see that this material has this like little blue line that is telling me that this is basically an override. So this material has been overridden with respect to the original prefab, which is this one here. Now to create a variant, I will take this Slime Critter green and I will go to the right folder and I will drag it in here. and Unity will ask me, do you want to create an original prefab, or do you want to create a prefab variant or cancel? And I will say prefab variant. And once I do this, I have a new prefab, which is basically a variation on the previous one. And I want to show you a couple of things. First, if I select this prefab one here, the variant, you will notice that this material here, the element 1, is no longer, doesn't have the blue line. Because basically what variants do is they kind of like encapsulate the previous prefab with all the modifications, with all the overrides. But if I go inside, if I go and edit this prefab, you will notice that now I see that material changed, because now I'm inside the box. So it's really good to think of prefabs as boxes, and that you can step inside the box and see what's inside the box. In this case, is this object here, and here we find the changes. But if we step outside of the box, then the change is hidden again. So in this sense, prefabs are good for like hiding that complexity and to save these modifications. And now, for instance, we can create like another one. So for instance, if I create a duplication of the base again, and I were to call it like mud, then I could save this prefab again as a variant. And now I can, rename this. I always like to take off the variant part. And I can do the modification now. For example, I can open the mud one and go inside and change the material from here, this one. And if I go out, there we go. Now we have one base and two variants. And now comes the interesting part. If I were to make any modifications to this base, for instance, even if I were to just scale it to something like this, and then I apply the scale, the variants will take it, right? Because they are inheriting all of the properties. Another interesting thing could be to take, for example, this particle system here, these droplets that I've created. So let's say that I were to add these droplets to the base, because I want the base to be able to like leave droplets when it moves, right? Now that this object has been added to the prefab, I can actually I can apply it. So you can see that here it has a little plus icon, which means that this object is still like new to this prefab. And I can say right click, added game object, apply as an override. So now, as you can see, also the two created variants have the object. But now the interesting thing is that I can go inside the base and I can make modifications to the color of these droplets and make them orange, for instance. So that now in the base, they're orange. But if I go to one of the variants, I can override those changes and make them green, for instance. And as you can see, the color here is now in blue. It's showing me that just this property has been changed it has been overridden. So this one can be green, and this one can be, oops, I need to go inside the variant. This can be brown. I'm not gonna be like super artsy. And now you can see that I have three variations, and obviously these two will still obey to the changes of the first one, but when they move, and I think I can do this, they will leave like different particles because of the kind of like the override that I've hidden inside the variants. And that's one way to use them, right? In this case, for instance, I didn't use nesting. So the object that's inside the droplets, this is not a prefab, this is just a regular game object. Because, and this is our case, right? Like this character has these droplets, and sure, I could make this a prefab, but then I would have a prefab for a particle system which will only exist in one place in the world. So in this case, for me, it makes more sense to hide the particles inside the object as a normal game object, and then make variants which are like variations. So I change the outside material, and then I change the color of the droplets that they leave behind. That's one use case. Of course, this is very simple. I don't know what people are saying in the chat. Talking about color, talking in Russian. We don't have a Russian interpreter, sorry.
But yeah, someone said that looks very interesting. I didn't know that about the variant prefab, so happy that people are learning something.
Yeah, then the interesting thing is, so this is the original one, right? If I click select, I select the base, which is here, and I like to call it base just to remind myself which one is the original. And then here, you can see here at the top of the inspector that it tells you what's the base for this asset. So for instance, if I select the one mud, it tells me that the base is actually the one that I called base. And if I select the one called base, it tells me that the base is one called slime critter, which is the FBX. So if I click on this, you will see that it sends me to the actual FBX file, which is the one that contains the geometry. All this is also community contribution, by the way. So why do I actually ask people, if somebody is here in the chat and you've contributed to the project, and Dane Bird is actually asking right now, so even Slime Critter base is a prefab variant? Yes, it is. Why is it a prefab variant? And why am I asking everybody to make prefab variants? If you notice, this little icon, this is the prefab variant. So all of our 3D models are prefab variants. Why am I asking everybody to do this? Well, the reason is very simple. If you create a normal prefab out of an FBX, let's say that I bring this FBX here to the scene, and I will bring it here into the view. Apart from the fact that it's very small, as you can see, wrong scaling. I think it should be 100. No, 10. I don't know. I know it was 1. Never mind. But yeah, it's the model comes in as like 001. So this is the FBX. I can do two things. I can make it into a normal prefab by just like dragging it here and going like original prefab. And let me do that, but let me duplicate it first. So normal prefab, 1, 2, 3, original. This other one, which we will call variant, I drag it to the assets and I choose to be a variant. What happens? Number one, the icon is telling you what's happening here. If you open one of these, let's say I open the normal prefab, I will see that inside, as the root, I have just a regular game object. You see this icon here? This is a regular game object. If I open the variant, I will notice that this is actually telling me that this is the FBX. So the variant encapsulates the FBX and wraps it in a box, as I was saying. Which means that if you make modifications to this, the modifications are stored as an override. Let's say that I were to change the number of materials. You see that now, well, disappeared, but you see that the little blue lines are telling me that this is an override. So this means that this is still retaining the connection to the original FBX, but it's overriding some of its properties, which means that when I make modifications to the FBX, I can actually retain some of these changes. Who has an idea what can you do with this? If I have the FBX, make changes to the FBX, and I save it in Blender, for example, and it's a prefab a variant in Unity. Do you have any idea, girls? Gonna throw the gauntlet of challenge.
Maybe we should cheat and ask the community in the chat.
I'm asking everyone.
So I'm looking if there is any answers. Okay. Someone says zero idea. Someone says they keep the chance. Someone say talk. I think you should talk.
All right. So to give you an example, we have these characters, and we're gonna have a bunch of characters that are using the same prefab, and they will have accessories. And right now you're seeing some accessories like this hair, I guess. This sombrero, then you have like hairstyles, you have earrings, glasses. We have a user, she's called Smurio, or Smurjo, I don't know how to pronounce it. And she's making a lot of these assets for the characters. So to make these to use these assets, we will have a base prefab, and then we will have some kind of slot where we will put this object inside. So to give you an example, let's say that I have I want to have the sombrero, right? So what can we do? You can, for instance, let me delete this too. I can, let's think. I will find this object here, and I will find the FBX. Let me take the female character. Whatever, it's the same. Bring it to the scene. Now, if I make a variant out of this, here it is. And obviously I can add the material, right? Like I can find the material, and if I add the material, you will notice that it will be added as an override as usual. And then I can make out of this a prefab variant. And let's say that I were to like just throw it in here. Prefab variant. Now what I can do with this is, because I encapsulated the FBX, I can actually open Blender, which for some reason I closed, but let me open it again. There we go. Let me delete these objects. And let me import the prefab that I just, the FBX, sorry, that I just modified. Did something wrong. So this is the FBX. It's not importing for some reason.
So are you going to modify the prefab, the FBX, sorry, the model in Blender?
I think I made a mistake. I think I I overwrote it.
Yeah.
I exported on it.
Yeah.
All right. What a live fail. I guess the chat is very entertained right now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try with the other one. We still have one more.
Please don't override this one.
Careful, Kiro. This is the last one that you have.
Create a copy just in case.
No, I mean I have Git. That's not an issue. But yes. So let's import the male one. That was funny. There we go. So this is the FBX, right? And if I go into Unity and I take this one and I make it's called fashion model right now. But if I make it into a variant, you will see that what I can do here is there we go. So this is our variant. So what I can do is I can go into Blender and I can create a new object. For instance, I can create an empty sphere. This is kind of like a placeholder object, right? And then if I can put it here at the top. And this is going to be like a slot for accessories. In this case, it's going to be for the hat. And so, for instance, I can have this object here. I can call it like hat slot. And then if I remember the shortcut correctly, it's going to be this. Yes. So I parented the empty object to the hat. And now what I can do is I can go and export FBX. And if I choose the right one again, hopefully. Yes, and I choose the Unity. Well, I should save without the okay, never mind. I'll use the
Also, meanwhile, just I wanted to say something funny from the chat.
Okay.
When you overwrote something, the incident, I would say someone said a perfect transition into better Git workflows.
That's a funny one. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna remake the variant just because I also made a mistake in saving. But let's say I remake the variant here. It's hard to talk and do things at the same time.
Yeah. I will comment. No, okay.
What did you say?
No, I was saying I will comment, but then I was like, no, just kidding.
Anyway, so because I used because I made a variant, now as you can see, I have the hat slot here as a child of the prefab, because if I enter inside, I will see exactly the FBX that I was editing in Blender, and the hat slot is where I placed it, is up here, right? So what this allows me to do now is that, for example, if I were to take the sombrero and make it a child of the hat slot and position it like properly, so that is like position in the right place, I now have the sombrero as a child. And what happens is that if I go into Blender, for instance, and I were to like reposition the hat slot somewhere else and maybe rotate it, I want to make mistakes. Oops. Like this. And save again the file, so export FBX. And I need to make sure that I'm saving exactly on the same location as before. So I would save here, and I hope my export saved correctly. There we go. You can see how this changed. So what is this doing basically is that the prefab now is encapsulating the FBX, and so any change to the FBX will be one-to-one ported to the Unity model. So I could, like keep working in here. For example, I could like rethink this and maybe put the prefab a little bit like this, and maybe scale it down a little bit. And because this is a container for the hat, let me save again. Because this is a container for the hat, then it will be updated, and the hat will also be scaled. So as you can see, like the slot is like 79 now. So with this, we can like start building like an army of characters that have like slots for objects. And if we keep the FBX inside the prefab variant, it means that we can now edit the FBX at any time and make adjustments to it, and all of the characters will be automatically updated, which is super important. We're also using these, for example, for the pig chef. So I don't know if you know, but the pig chef has 3 slots on his body for accessories. So if you go inside the character, you can notice that he has, let me find them, he has the lantern, the pouch, and the knife. And these 3 are 3 attachments, as you can see. So you have one here, and one here, which are all housing prefabs. And this means that basically, if this prefab is a prefab variant, the animator can now work with the FBX and animate these attachments. So for instance, she would like animate the object that holds the knife when she's creating a new animation. And then once she passes me the prefab, I literally just drop it in Unity and it updates. And then the lantern, the pouch, and the knife will always be in the correct position because the object that contains them will be updated. So that's a very good use of prefab variants to be able to have this one-to-one correspondence with the FBX. Sorry for the mistake, and I destroyed the the female townsfolk, but can be reverted easily. Yeah. And that's about it. I don't know. Do you have questions? Are there questions in the chat, actually?
So Actually, I wanted to ask a question. So, and this will not work if we create just a prefab of the FBX, because if we create a prefab of the FBX, it will just create a prefab of a game object. So if we change anything in the FBX, it will not be applied on that prefab.
Yeah, so
And that's why.
So if the what's it called, the object was a normal prefab, and I can show you very easily, I think. So let's suppose that this is not a variant, that this is just a regular prefab, and that's actually very easy to do. If I go inside the variant and I see the FBX inside, do you know this, Shema? You can right click and unpack.
It's I think we're not seeing it in the screen.
No?
Yeah, you're zooming.
Yeah.
Now we see better. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it without zoom. So if you right click and unpack an FBX inside a variant, the whole prefab from a variant becomes a normal prefab.
Yeah.
So this is not the FBX anymore. This is just a game object. So if I go back, in fact, you will see that the prefab now has a normal icon.
Yeah.
And this means that if I go to Blender and I were to like change the position of this object and export again, and I actually have a shortcut for this, but I don't want to make a mess in the stream. So if I save now, you will notice that the object doesn't move. Because this prefab, not being a variant, has lost the connection to the original FBX. In fact, if I were to like find the FBX, if I can find the FBX now, where was it? In characters, townsfolk, I think is this one. And if I kind of like inspect it, you will notice that in the FBX, the hat slot is modified.
Yeah.
So it's moved exactly like I saved it in Blender. But because that one is not a variant anymore, is not holding the reference. Yep.
Yeah.
Then there's some mad
Awesome.
stuff that you can do, like you can go inside the prefab and actually prefab the base. So if you take this one and you bring it to the prefabs again, now this is a prefab, and the one in the scene is actually a variant.
Nice.
And then you can go inside and do it again, and do it again, and then Unity will ask you like, do you want to insert a new base? So basically you can have like a chain of inheritance of variants, right? Starting from a game object, packed into a prefab variant, packed into a prefab variant, packed into a prefab variant, and destroyed everything. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
It was just to show you a few of the possibilities of this system, which is quite crazy, quite powerful. You can also get a lot confused if you don't name things correctly, but that's why I'm so like strict in my naming conventions, up to like the capitalization of objects.
That's true, actually.
Cool.
Well, that looks fantastic.
More comments? Somebody's asking, can you create prefab variants of terrains? Not really, because the terrain relies on an asset. I think the main, it's an asset. So the point is like when you create prefabs, what you're doing is you're encapsulating overrides in the scene. So like scaling, and positions and rotations and materials. And those are all properties of the game object in the scene. Then you create the prefab and you create a box around it. But the terrain is connected to an asset. So no, you don't do that, unfortunately. I'm reading the chat. It's prefabs all the way down, yes. But I wouldn't suggest to go too deep with the inheritance chain, because then you get confused. So I would say like a couple of levels, that's about it. Actually, one use that I wanted to have, girls, give me your opinion. So my idea was, actually I'm going to show the screen again. For the character, for the big chef, he has these scripts, right, which power the gameplay: character controller, animator, state machine, protagonist, and this particle controller. Many of these we won't need them in a cutscene. So,
Yeah.
for instance, the problem is, I think even if in this scene here, if I press play, he will fall through the floor because the character controller is dragging him down, right? And this ground doesn't have any collider. So I was thinking it could be useful maybe to have a prefab that is a base, which is a cinematic character, which has none of this, and then we make a variant out of it that has these gameplay components.
That sounds awesome, actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
What do you
it's
think?
a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Is the chat okay?
Does the chat agree?
Do you agree?
It's okay. Yeah.
And it's actually a good example of a good use case
Mhm.
of also prefab variants, I guess. Not only like on the visual and artist aspect, I would say, but even from like a programming point of view, when you want to create variants of prefabs when it comes to different components and scripts. So it's, in my opinion, it's a good use case to show the power of prefabs. So yes, I see some yeses in the chat. So
Actually, somebody was saying to make a separate tutorial about prefabs and what did they say? Empties. I actually have a tutorial that I put on YouTube. I'm gonna pass the link in the chat. This is a tutorial about how to go from Blender to Unity using the power of the prefab workflow. And it looks like this. So in this tutorial, I was like using the prefab workflow and encapsulating prefab variants to basically have a flexible workflow that takes me from Blender to Unity with 3 different prefabs in the same Blender file, and they all come in as FBXs, separate FBXs, and then I can use variants to keep them separate variants and keep everything super flexible. So I just dropped the link in the chat if you're curious. Check it out. It's from a year ago. Cool. What next?
Thank you very much, Chiro, for all this wisdom about the prefabs.
yeah.
Let's see some questions. Isn't it a problem using so many empty objects inside each other? It really depends. Like if you have 100,000 objects, then if you have an empty object in each one of them, now you have 200,000 objects. But if we use it just for the character, it's okay.
I have a cool question also. Are prefab variants recognized as unique by addressables?
Yeah, they are, definitely.
Okay.
They are a different asset, right? So they will be recognized as the different entity, I guess. So Leandro says, I mean, I have to be careful not to create unnecessary duplicates. Yes, but that's not really, I would say it's not really a prefab question. It's more of an addressable question. Like you can create duplicates even just without using variants. For instance, if you were to, connect a prefab to multiple scenes and then you make 2 asset bundles out of that, then the 2 asset bundles will both have a copy of that prefab. But sometimes it's wanted, sometimes that's what you want. I want to answer that question. Anish Sharma says, why don't you use .blend file directly? That's a good question. The reason why I'm not using blend files and we're using FBXs as an exchange format is because .blend, .mbx, .mba, I think, which is Maya formats, 3ds, which is 3D Max format, and .max, they're all proprietary formats. What happens is that if you use these proprietary formats, you need to have the program installed to import the files. So if I make something in Max and I put the Max file into the Unity project and any of you downloads the project, you need to have 3D Studio Max installed on the machine to import that file. And that's why we use FBX files, which are a good interchange format because anyone can open them without having any DCC tool installed.
There's a question about the prefab variants. So can you use the prefab variants for 2D as well? Well,
Yeah, you
you can use prefab for everything that you have in the scene.
Game object, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oren
So-
adds to my answer, and Unity behind the scenes will translate them to FBX anyway. That's interesting. I don't think I knew this, actually. You mean in the importer? Like the importer will import them and convert them to... Cool.
Yeah.
I've only used Blender a little, but can you include IK with FBX files or only with proprietary file types? The thing is, IK, you can include constraints, but I don't think Unity supports all of the constraints that Maya or Max can produce. So normally what you do is that you bake the constraints. So if you have an IK, right, and you have a controller that like moves the wrist and calculates the forearm and the arm as a result, what happens is that usually you bake that animation. So when you bring it inside Unity, you don't have the IK anymore, but you only have rotation for the arm and for the forearm as animation keys. That's usually what you do. Then we have IK inside Unity with the animation rigging package, but that's another discussion. Thank you, Lenata. They say that I don't understand English well, but everything is clear from Unity. Unity like us? Unity who?
Who's Unity? Everyone is
Anyway,
Unity.
I think it's time to move forward. So we move on to something else. Next time we'll do Git. I promise. Amel will do it.
Amel will do assigning tasks on live streams.
No?
No, I would do it. I'd love to. I love games. So yeah.
I framed you now. You can't say no.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
recorded.
It's recorded and Amel should talk about it. And now I guess it's maybe time to have a tour through some recent and cool contributions from the community. Again, there's so many PRs, so many great stuff going on. That's really amazing. Thank you all again for all your contributions. We can't show everything, but we do our best to show small of that, like a small part of all those contributions every time.
Sorry, I just saw in the chat somebody says, next time we revert that townsfolk F prefab.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll bring her back.
Yeah, I will do that same mistake for the same next stream. And I was like, it's intentional. Now we can show it.
Yeah. Okay, so community contributions. Contributions. As Amel said, we're gonna highlight some of them. I lost my screen. Obviously, they come through GitHub, right? So some of them are still trapped inside the PR. They're gonna be approved soon. So starting from GitHub, I want to show you, the pull requests. Like the amount of contributions we're getting is just insane. Seriously, like as you can see here, we have 176 PRs closed in 2 months, 18 still open, and then we have a bunch of issues as well, open and closed. So as you can see, the last contribution is from Nick and Emma, and it's number 259, means that 259 not people, but like contributions from I think around 80 people, 80 different people. So it's insane. Like the volume of contributions that we're seeing is insane, and thank you for that. It's amazing. Just going very quickly to show you some of the cool stuff. We have people making 3D assets like Erizo Albuquerque, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Like this fantastic frying pan. This was funny because we were on the forums and people were making the 3D assets that you saw, like the ones that I've shown here. And before this, there was only the sombrero and some kind of other hats and what was like a statue or something. And I was like, is nobody making like a fork or a pot? You know, like we need that kind of stuff. There's a cooking festival in this game. So now they started making this frying pan, like forks, and actually I'm gonna show you some more models. Let me just grab them. I have them here. I haven't put them in the scene yet. I think they are in props, tableware. Oh no, sorry, this is the model. FBX. I'm now obsessed about FBXs. I want to see FBXs everywhere. But if I go to this, don't know why Unity's decided that. Can I put them here? No, it just puts them in the empty void. Ah, because this thing has no collider. I am the worst. Let's see if it works now. Okay, now it works. So again, FBXs. So I can show you spoons. Nice. This is super funny. This is like a coconut cup. It's quite nice.
Oh, I thought I could use it as an apple.
A fork. We have a large bowl.
Nice.
Very simple, but you know, functional. Like when you see it when we're gonna put like all these things together, it's gonna look super nice. Large dish. I love this one. This one has the Phoenix chick.
Oh, so cute.
as a logo.
Yeah,
it's quite nice.
I want that in real life.
We're gonna make merchandise. Yes. We have a glass. We have a pitcher. Again, simple shapes, but really, really nice. Placemate. Then we have a shell bowl from Smurio. She's the one who made the sombrero as well. Small bowl. Small dish. Small glass. Small spoon. So as you can see, now we have all the tableware that we need. And a vase with some flowers.
So nice.
Then we have... I don't want to mix it up. We have the frying pan, as you saw before. From Erizo Albuquerque. So they are from different people. We have then we have like some props for the scene, like plants. This wooden box. We have these baskets. This sign here is also new. Again, plants. We have 1 million plants from help me, Laxki, I think. So we have this big tree, which actually I think should be even bigger. I think I want to make it like seriously, like a kind of like the tree of life or something.
Yeah.
It's also using Andy's shaders. So as you can see, as I move it through the scene, it's gonna take like small variations of color, which means that if you have two like close to each other, they're not gonna look exactly the same. Maybe this is exaggerated though. It's because it's on yellow. It's extreme, but like as you can see, this allows us to like have variations of nature assets. Then we have, as I was saying, a bunch of super nice tree. Like this one is kind of like umbrella tree. This is called tree swirl. We have a little bush with a very short stump. We have this tree here, which is called flat tree. We have new fern. So there's a lot of plants. Like, don't worry about nature. It's gonna look amazing. But I think one of the most amazing contributions is these two houses for the village, complete with moving door.
Oh, so nice.
And then we have stands, which are gonna be super useful for the what's the name, for the festival, right?
The festival, yeah.
So they're gonna be full with
fruit.
With fruit, with food. There we go. So these are all community contributions.
Yeah.
We have a nice boat.
The
this is not community made.
Stunning.
But the boat actually shows you a small trick, which I was mentioning before, like when we do rendering stuff. The boat actually has a mask to hide the water. So
Yeah.
if I remove the mask, as you can see, that's what you get, as it would be normal. But then with the rendering trick, the boat now hides the water inside. So if you're interested in this, obviously download the project and check it out. And if you go to the repository, if you go to the wiki, there's a little bit of explanation about our shader and how they work. Yes, I got it. GitHub telling me things. More contributions. Yes, these are the ones from Trevize. As I said, we have a fantastic contribution again from Trevize. He's making the state machine for the plant critter to make sure that the plant critter detects the player and changes behavior animation when they do. And the thing that I think is very interesting here, if you go to the repo, is the conversation that is in this PR. So as you can see, some people joined the conversation, apart from me, obviously, like Dapper Dino. He was giving a very, very good point, and then Trevize had to change the state machine as a result. So very interesting conversation. I really advise you to go and check it out. We have editor tools being made for the editor. So for instance, this one from Neonage is very cool, to replace instances of an object with a prefab. And he basically made a small window, which you can see here, which opens on right click and then gives you a preview of the prefab that you're going to use to swap it.
I think we tried that yesterday, ML, didn't we?
Yeah.
For one of our merge, I think that we tried this tool and it was very useful.
Yeah, to replace the prefab, and that's
Yeah.
super cool.
So that's from Neonage. Not merged yet, but maybe we will merge it. Tatransky Medved, sorry, has made a custom inspector that basically, so this is the input reader scriptable object, is the one that reads the input, and he's made this custom inspector that allows you to fire input events from the inspector. So just by clicking this button, it's as if you pressed the button on the controller, right? And it gives you the same result, because since we're using this event system, then it goes into the same flow and it produces exactly the same result. And we're putting particular attention in creating these tools that allow us to live the real game experience, but faster, right? Because they make your production go a bit faster. Rinaldi Satria has improved the dialogue system to add branching for the dialogues. We're gonna pull this one soon enough. And then we have improvements on the toon shader. So Bird, which I think is in the chat right now, has made a few improvements to how the graph is organized, and again, discussion is going on. So I really advise to check out, even if you don't end up contributing to the project, even just reading the discussion on the forums, as you can see, pretty long, is pretty interesting. So go to the forums and check out one of the official threads. This is more or less all from me. I mean, there's so much stuff to show, but you can explore it in the repository by yourself. This is a character made by the community, a member of the community, and the slimes are also made by somebody in the community. Yeah, this little hammer, nice hammer.
Great.
And the flowers. Have you seen the flowers? I don't know if I've shown them before. So we have 7-8 types of wildflowers. I think we need to optimize the polygons a bit, but they're super cool. They add a lot of variety and could be really interesting to create objects that you can pick up, actually. So yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. Looks so good.
Yeah.
What is the chat saying? Do you like the community contributions?
I think they do.
Yeah.
Leandro says, I hope my shyness will pass and who knows, start a new story about the developer console, the terminal. Yeah, we will love that.
And someone says so many contributions, and this is like only few, I would say, that we showed today, and there's like many more.
Yeah, as we said,
thank
like we're on PR 250 or something. It's insane.
Yeah, really. And we are only in the 5th, I would say, episode, so that's quite crazy. Yeah.
I wanna thank all the Russian-speaking people in the chat right now. Also, I don't know what you're saying, but I'm sure you're talking about what to contribute on. Somebody asks, the boat sways on the waves. No, we don't have any kind of buoyancy system, and I don't think we will, because the game is not set at sea. You know, it's on an island, but like we will probably have some kind of cutscene of arrival, but we won't probably have a proper like navigation, because there's no point. But if you want to add it, actually, sorry, just to comment on somebody, I think Ellie made a question before. She was asking if you can add stuff to the game after the development has finished, and the answer is yes, of course. It's an open source project, right? So why not?
I think there's one of the comments that is really interesting. So the great thing, I think it's Dane Bird that said that. So it said, the great thing is your contribution can be flawed and then improved through collaboration with others. And actually, I think that's a great point that they make, because yeah, it happens a lot that one contribution has a lot of interaction with other people, and it becomes this big, huge contribution that everyone likes.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen it a couple of times, both on community contributions, or people from the community improving on our contributions, because, you know, like what we make is not perfect. So David Rodriguez says, except mine, I always get it right first try. Sure. He's made so many good contributions. So
yeah, true.
Yeah, I actually
many
can't
times,
wait
yes.
What people will contribute with in the inventory system and in the UI system, because as we said, we think about the thing and we talk with the team, and then we talk about with the community and everything. But at the end, it's only me that developed it. So the contribution from everyone else, every comment that they will make, I will take in consideration, and we will create a system that is better, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to show one thing before we move on. This is an image that I created for this live stream, and this starts to show you. This is obviously not in movement. Amel, you like? But it starts to show you how the game could look if you put things together, right? So this was done in like 2 hours, and it's actually a lot of tricks. I don't have the scene right now, but it's super funny because there's the water plane, then there's the beach, and then there's a gap, and then there's like the grass plane. So behind this part here on the beach, there's a huge gap. So it's only good from this point of view. But I think actually, once we start making cutscenes, it's gonna be super fun because we're gonna use a lot of hacks. I don't know if anybody in the chat has ever seen a channel. It's called NoClip. Shaman Amel, have you ever seen NoClip?
No,
YouTube
I
channel.
don't think so.
So it's a YouTube channel that shows basically behind the scenes of AAA games. I don't know how they do it, but they take AAA games, like including Nintendo games, and they compile them or something, and then they have, for example, one thing they do is they move the camera. So it's fantastic. Like I've seen one about Zelda, and how some cutscenes they move the camera and suddenly like the illusion like crumbles to the ground because maybe there's a character on a black background, and they're actually on the other side of the room. There's just the character with a flat black plane in the back, you know, and then the camera frames that and then frames something else, and it seems like a cut, but they're actually all in the same room. And I think that's what we're gonna do in the end. So we're gonna have like big hacks where we have everything in the scene and turning on cameras, turning them off, turning characters on. It's gonna be fun. And this scene is kind of like an example of this. But
Yeah,
I really
I
wanted to
think
show like the nature together. Sorry?
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Yeah, I
fun.
think the example you mentioned about Zelda, I think you showed it to Michio before, and that's true. Like, I think we will need to use these hacks also to make it look pretty. And now that you showed this wallpaper, I want that wallpaper for my desktop. So can you put that in like thread in the forum so other people also, if they want to use it,
Sure,
let
that's a
us-
good idea actually.
yeah, let us know in the chat if you want that
I
wallpaper.
have wallpapers for myself.
Yeah.
But
No, I want
yeah,
that one. It's
sure,
my
sure.
favorite.
We can share high resolution images of the game and on the forums. That would be fun actually.
That'd be fun, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, Hiro, what are the next steps now?
What are the next steps? That's a very good question, Shema. I don't fully know. I kind of know, but I think we're reaching the moment in development where it's like plateauing a little bit, right? It's been 2
Yeah.
months. We still have like 3.5 months ahead. But after the initial, like at the beginning, you have like a clear picture, right? I need to make this, I need to make this, I need to make the character controller to make the character move. I need to make the inventory to have the character pick something up. And then you have all these strands and you're like, what next? And it's tough. It's tough to visualize now. We have to put like all the pieces together. And
Yeah.
some fit very naturally, like the interaction that you're creating, Amel, and the inventory that you're creating, Shema.
Yeah.
And for some others, it's like, okay, where do we go next? Like we're now discussing the quest system,
Yeah.
the gameplay progression, right? And where to add and where to remove. So
This was a very interesting discussion, and I think it will be the next inventory.
I'll give you the spotlight. Tell us about it.
Oh, okay.
Tell us anything. Like
Yeah,
I'll prepare the roadmap in the meantime.
Okay, so as I said, this was a very interesting discussion today to discuss how the quest system will look like, because we have some contributions from the community about how it will look like and how we will tell the story and what are the missions, etc. But we don't know yet how it will be in the code and how it will be in the editor. So today we started the discussion, but then we stopped it because we said, okay, let's focus on the stream, and then maybe we will discuss that in 1 week or something.
And just so you know, the discussion is basically around linear quests or non-linear quests, because we were figuring out that even when you think something is very linear by general terms, it's actually very intricate and like it can introduce a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
So we'll bring that discussion to the forums for sure, and unleash even that task on the community. Discuss and develop it together.
Yeah.
Cool. So what next?
Yes.
This is the what we call the roadmap, the public roadmap. It's also accessible from publicly, and actually I think I can give you the link if it wasn't shared already. Not yet. So I'll share the link with you. That's the roadmap. There we go. And the roadmap is basically this tool. It's based on a tool called Codex. And it's a card-based tool that shows you many things, actually. So it starts with the README, where you can find about the project. Then it has a game design wiki, which details like characters and the game design itself. The story is also in here. Then it has decks that are like for action items. So we have items that are being discussed, and many of these items, they will bring you to the forum. So if you check the cards, they'll bring you to a forum thread where you can discuss. There's bugs, of course. There's always bugs in games, I thought we were not going to have bugs, but we have plenty of bugs even now at the beginning, which are very interesting, and many bugs are being fixed by the community. And then we have like these items here, like code and 3D and shading, texturing. These are where you will find tasks to take on. Like if you want to contribute to the project. Of course, you can also like make things that are original, but I will suggest go in here and check what we need, because these tasks are actually ordered by priority. So you see here medium, no rush. Here we have a priority high. So just go in here and check out what these tasks are, because some of these tasks, you know, we actually need to get on them. And then we have these decks here at the bottom. They are basically what we did until now. So you can see how the public unveil in the first live stream, the second, the third. And now we're at the fifth one. And in the fifth one, we have these 20 items that we just completed just before this live stream. And many of these, the ones that you see with the blue Unity logo, they're done by the community. Some of them are bug fixes. And some of them, like these ones with the little wrench, are editor tools. So we have something for everyone. Programmers, shading, technical artists, texturing, we have everything. And speaking of that, I want to just unveil a couple of new tasks. We're sorry we don't have many tasks to unveil live on the live stream, but I just want to show you a couple of them, and then we're going to add more in the coming days. So a couple of them. So one of them is this one. Allow multiple entry and exit points in location. So what this means is we need, somebody's asking for the link. I'll send you the link again. Boom. Faster than light. I'm equally fast at destroying FBXs, but so this task here, allow multiple entry exit points in locations. Basically what we're saying here is that when you enter a scene, you don't always enter from the same spot. If you're coming from the beach to the forest, you will enter the forest from one side. If you're coming back from the town, you will enter the forest from the other side. And we need some system to do this. We need some system that says, okay, we're loading the forest, but because you were coming from the other exit, now the player needs to be spawned in this specific location. There's some freedom on how to do this. The card as always is trying to guide you into this, but then there's obviously some freedom on how this gets implemented. This card, I will put it into, as usual, it's a coding task, so I'll put it into the code deck. And as you see, I put it to high priority. And then I have a tool request, which I think could be really, really useful. An editor window to quickly open scenes. Somebody's providing solutions in the chat. Coding with Unity. So this editor window to quickly open scenes. So my idea is to have some editor window which has buttons to open scenes that we need very frequently. For instance, when I go to the project, I often switch between art showcase, which is this one, and then you see I have to go to like scenes, testing ground, don't save, and now I can press play and test the game. So it would be super good to have like a little panel here that shows me all these scenes, and then I can just like quickly switch to the other ones if I want to test things in multiple scenes. Especially as we make multiple locations, this is going to be super useful. Oren says it sounds familiar from Twitter. Yes, I got this inspiration from Twitter. Somebody was sharing, I think it was Harry Alizavakis. Somebody shared the tweet, and I was like, yes, we need this in open projects.
Yeah.
Or was it Patrick? I don't remember. Anyway, I was like, yeah, we need this. We need to make it. So I'll just put this card here in the code. And fun fact, Shema, do you know this card?
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
This was the beginning of the discussion. So yeah, we started doing this task, creating this task, but then we needed to put more informations, and we started this conversation, and then we said, yeah, we will provide that later. Yeah,
so basically, as you can see, that's always the challenge with this project. Like we have some vision, we wanna discuss it, and the community is big, and everybody's gonna have their own vision of the task, right? And number one, how to implement it in a technical way, but also what does it do, right? And where does it end in some way? So the scope of the task. And so we need to be as clear as possible. And with the quest system, we found some roadblocks, and we're trying to like figure out where to cut. And again, this is not a one way. There's not a one-way discussion, of course. Like we're not saying that we figure out something and we just put it out and you do the task, or but we need to start from somewhere. So we're trying to like, and actually this quest system, this discussion is coming from community suggestions, right? We got here by iterating on the story and on the quests, right? Shannon,
so the discussion is actually based on the community contribution and the threads, the multiple threads about the story and about the mission. So yeah, it will be based on that, but we just need to, like Chira said, create the scope and the boundaries to that system, so that we don't think about something that is very huge for the community or very huge in such a short time or something.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody was asking in the chat, and I want to answer that. I forgot the question now. Yes, they were asking about audio.
Yeah.
So for audio, like with the graphics, we will start with some audio that we have contracted. So there's somebody working for us that's gonna make like the base for the audio. So they're gonna start with some kind of like drafts of the music and some sound effects. And then we're gonna kind of like open the doors to the community. And again, this is the same discourse as for the graphics. We need some kind of coherence. So if we were just to open the doors to the creation of audio from the community straight away, then we will get like 3,000 ideas, and it will be tough to choose which one and to set a direction. So exactly like with the graphics, we're setting some path, and then we're gonna add to it. And don't worry, there's gonna be a lot of stuff to add if you want to. So there's, obviously the sky's the limit, so there's always space to add new things.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool. So now that we have the next tasks in the deck, again, visit the roadmap, find something to contribute on. I just wanted to mention, in addition to the priority of the tasks, as you can see here, high, medium, and no rush, some tasks have a little green icon. The green icon means that task is good for first starters, if you want. So if you don't know where to start from, these tasks are usually a bit easier than others, I believe. But up to you. That depends on your skill level, of course. But these ones should be easy enough. So that could be a cool entry point into the project. And always go to the forums and discuss things first. That's always recommendable. All right. Questions from the chat?
I don't think I've seen any.
Yes.
Yeah, so that question, that answer was for Abhiruth Meherishi about audio. What else? Blue and Snow speaks Arabic. We have people who speak Arabic here.
Oh, nice. Hey.
Hey, that's all the Arabic that you can talk or something.
Yeah.
Come on, Shana, don't be shy.
I am very shy.
All right. I think we're getting to the end. We have covered everything. This is where the live stream ends. Thanks everyone for staying with us. Just to recap, the project is now 2 months old, right?
Mhm.
I think we're still looking at like almost 4 months of development. So there's still plenty of time to get in. There's still plenty of time to understand it. I understand that sometimes this project can be a bit daunting, like you get to it and it's like, oh, where do I start? For that, just repeating that you will find the wiki on the repository, which we're slowly filling up with content. So if you go to the wiki, you will find some guide on how to get started with the whole project, how to play the game in the editor, how to create a new scene, and then going into the different systems, like the famous event system that Amel created and she explained in a past episode. It's all in here. The state machine that is community created, that's a web page. Fail, but we're gonna put it in. Object pooling, also community contribution. So start from the wiki, that's a good entry point, and make some contribution up to your skill level. As we said, like we have 258 contributions so far, but we still have a very long way to go. So there's still a lot of space to make contributions.
Yeah, we do have actually a question from Victor, who is asking about the next stream, because this is the last stream of the year. So this is the last one in 2020, and we will have other streams in 2021. Shall we give the date maybe to you?
If I can remember, let me.
The 12th?
It's on the 8th? I don't know.
I'm finding it. 1 second.
Yeah,
There
12,
we go.
but
The
let me-
12th of
Yes.
January. Same time,
Yes.
which is 7 p.m. in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
You figure the other time zones.
Just Google it,
Yeah. No, but we usually publish the live stream a week before, and if you find the YouTube page, which is gonna be shown to you if you're subscribed to Unity, then you can set a reminder, so you won't miss it. And so 12th of January, yes. So the 12th of January we will make a new live stream, and I strongly suggest to come for one very simple reason. We have almost 1 month to go to that. There's gonna be a lot of new things. Obviously, we're gonna take a little break for Christmas.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be a lot to see as all the systems are like coming together, and Shaman Amel will work on them while I eat. That's my plan.
Yeah. Confirm.
I will change my name to Chiro in this case, and then
All right.
Right.
So, any final words?
Thank you, everyone, for attending. See you in January, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
À la
and-
revoyure, as
À la
Fredo says.
revoyure.
À la
Exactly. Yeah.
revoyure. Yeah, enjoy the break. See you in January. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.